Hello, Holly. Very nice to meet you.
Hi. You too. How are you
I,
doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm not sure if you caught much of the previous conversation.
About half of it. It made me wonder if you're exhausted about talking about COVID.
Well, I mean, I have the stamina, I think, to to carry on if necessary. You know, um, I think the way it was structured in that last exchange was a little bit like an interview,
Mhm.
which may, I don't know if that's something that you'd like me to do. I could, as it were, interview you if you liked, or if you would prefer just to have a sort of a more bi-directional conversation, I'd be very happy with that as well. I don't know what your preference would be, or maybe you don't mind.
Oh, either way is great. I just my empathy goes towards scientists in this field who are doing public communications type work on top of their scientific work. I think uh, it must be a huge load, and thank you.
Well, it's very kind of you to say. I might ask you a question though, because I mean, I obviously I'm not an environmental scientist, but of course we know it's all going to affect us over time. The response to the pandemic in sort of were economic and carbon emission terms. Has this been something which has given yourself or other researchers a big insight into how reduction in carbon emission might help, where it might help immediately and where it might be a very long-term problem? Is this some sort of an opportunity there that people are exploiting in research terms?
There has been a lot of stuff published that's just come out because of, the academic publication cycle. So even the past few weeks, but I feel like a lot of people just feel grim about it because we had this reduction in emissions from the pandemic, and it was just such a small blip compared to the reductions that we need, that you look at it and like, wow, that was a huge example of voluntary behavior shift, but look how little it moved the needle. So
Right.
yeah, I'm sorry I can't be more positive on that question, but on the behavior shift question and the social norms changing rapidly, I think that's an area for hope, personally.
Right. So I think sometimes people try to say, "Oh, well, let's try and look on the positive side," and it always sounds a bit glib. And when people do, they tend to list, "Oh, well, it's going to be good for the environment. At least we're not traveling so much in planes." So we can cross that one off the list, can we? It's
Yeah, I think so.
not even that good for the environment. Great. Okay. Yeah. Has it had any short-term impact that is sort of measurable in a sort of a useful way, or is it really we're just sort of thinking about the wrong things? It's only really over the long term that you can assess the impacts of these things.
I mean, I think that it had, air quality impacts and those kinds of things. And the people that work on that were definitely studying it. But in terms of climate change writ large, I don't think so. I may be the wrong person to ask that because I'm a sociologist by training. Um, but from my colleagues, that's what I glean.
Right. So how's this pandemic situation impacted on your research? Has it been sort of disastrous from that point of view, or has it been the opportunities that emerge?
Well, you can't really go knock on people's doors anymore. So, I mean, there's been that shift to the virtual that, everybody in every field, I think, that can has been doing. Um, and I think that it's made a lot of sociologists think about, who we're aiming our work at, the kind of the time cycles of publication. Um, as a teacher, I'm thinking a lot about how my students receive information, the role of media, all these kinds of things. So it's definitely interesting from that standpoint. In particular, I'm interested in if social media, how it's mediating the relationships between science and policy now, and if you think it's affecting how science is done, or what has been your
Yeah.
experience and observations?
I think social media probably is affecting how science is done a bit. I think, at least in my field, you know, some people pay a lot of attention to it, some people pay a little bit of attention, some people really just either ignore it or they just hate it, you know. They think that scientists have got no business doing this kind of thing. There's sort of, in a way, as far as I'm concerned, I'm more towards I'm quite engaged with it. I think there's sort of room for a plurality of different ways of doing this, actually. And it can be an enormous distraction, and you can also get into, you know, pointless arguments and all this kind of thing, trying to explain, you know, concepts patiently to people who absolutely won't listen and just will have their own views. And, you know, I expect you find this an awful lot in the climate change field. But on the other hand, it's a really nice way sometimes of sharing information in an informal way, getting information from slightly different fields that you otherwise wouldn't. One thing I like about this Longplayer thing is its very interdisciplinary nature. And I was trying to think about the last time I did something like this. And it was actually with two people that I'd encountered first on Twitter, one a historian and one an archaeologist. And they both happened to be in Cambridge for different reasons. And we decided that we would do some interdisciplinary research at the pub, and it was excellent. We had a great time, and it's those sorts of things. And I'm still very much in touch with them. It's nice to interact, and there is a sort of a facilitation, I think, of those kinds of dialogues that otherwise perhaps might only happen in very narrow settings, or in sort of very specific circumstances where someone sort of tried to set it up a bit like this. So I think there's advantages there. I don't know, is this the sort of thing that you become sort of interested in the sort of course of your research?
Well, I am interested in it broadly in terms of how different publics understand climate change. And so that interest is transferred a bit onto how people understand COVID. And I've been paying attention over the years to communities of conspiracy about chemtrails and vaccines and now COVID. So I think understanding those dynamics is really interesting.
It must be really difficult because, you know, some conspiracy theories you think, okay, I can sort of see how you got hold of that. It's just a bad idea, and here's the reason. Others, it's like, what? Why on earth would anyone think that? I mean, like this 5G business, it's like, you'd have to understand literally nothing about anything to come up with this idea. And yet there we are. And you sometimes have to tell people, no, the 5G masts aren't anything to do with the virus. I mean, wow. So do you have any new sort of ideas about how this kind of phenomena take place?
I have a theory about it, which doesn't have much data to back it up besides my own observations at different protests and events. And so my theory is that people are experiencing ecological loss and decline, but they can't narrate it in those terms. So they narrate it in terms of these conspiracies. So it'll be, you know, with chemtrails, they're spraying us and the poison's falling down on everything. And it's putting it on some other actor that's manipulating it. So it's also a way to not have to reckon with your own part in it or your lifestyle or any of that. It's like this externalizing changes that you've seen, not just ecological, I mean, changes in, you know, the social dynamic, growing inequality. I think class is a big part of these conspiracies that people haven't really focused too much on. I mean, there's a reason why Bill Gates is a central figure for the chemtrails people and the vaccine people, and several others. It's like the symbol of, you know, unattainable wealth.
Yeah. Do you think, so I suppose maybe we should also be a little self-critical as an academic community. Are we doing enough to communicate with people in the right terms? I mean, we saw this, I think, in the UK with the Brexit and so on, that academics good at being seen to be talking down to people. Is that a problem that you think also exists in the US, and it perhaps is a problem in the climate change debate and the, I say debate, I mean, therein perhaps lies the problem. But do you think there's more we could be doing?
Definitely. I think it might be even worse in the US. I'm not sure. There's just such an anti-elite strain that feeds into an anti-expert strain. I was thinking about this because there was a great meeting yesterday I was on of social scientists that work on climate, and they did something great. They invited Sheldon Whitehouse, who's a senator who's been really proactive on climate for a very long time, really like the hero climate legislator, to come talk. And it was this great, because they were asking him, what can we do if we want our results and our messages to be heard? And he just laid it out. He's like, you've got to speak in language people can understand. You've got to get your messages out in the right ways. Even to go and ask a policymaker how to help you, I think is a good first step. I hadn't even been in a conversation like that before. And I've been in academia a while now. So yeah, I think we're slowly learning, because the stakes are so high and everybody sees how high the stakes are. Yes.
And is this something where, do you think it's possible in the United States at the moment to reach across the political divides there? Are there enough kind of people from, say, the Republican Party who are willing to listen, willing to engage, and enough people conversely, let's say in academia and the social sciences, who kind of have what it takes to go and sort of persuade people who might come from a very different political, philosophical perspective?
I don't think we have the numbers now that we need, because it's not just there's a big commitment of time, and those kind of things aren't really incentivized within our jobs.
They're actively discouraged because of the potential reputational impact if something goes wrong.
So that's one part of it, is just the reward system. But the other part, some people don't even want to engage. And I can see why. I'm in a privileged position because, I'm white, I'm middle class. I can go and knock on doors of people that are going to be Trump voters, and they might answer the door and be willing to listen. That was a research project I was doing last year, kind of in Texas and Kansas and Nebraska and Iowa. And if I had been in a different position, I don't think I would have felt comfortable doing that.
Wow, that's tough, actually. It's quite tough, isn't it? Yeah.
But I think we need to. There needs to be more dialogue. It's just, somebody has to begin it.
Yeah, I think the more we get into culture wars, the higher the chance that everyone loses. But I don't know how to get out. It's perhaps worse, perhaps a lot worse in the United States than it is here. But it just seems to me that both, as it were, sides in those culture wars sort of punish people who step out of line. And so you narrow the space in the middle where people might actually meet. And I'm not quite sure what the right answer to that is, but I think it's something we probably collectively do need to be really concerned with right now.
Yeah, I think there's a big value in listening, because people actually do care about a lot of the same things. They just talk about them in different terms. So I met people that were deeply concerned about their water table and water scarcity, and having good quality land to go hunting on. And they care about the health of their environment in different ways. It's not like everybody's anti-environment. So I think there's these meeting points that we on the left, I'll be explicit, need to be willing to go and meet people. And it's so hard when you're on social media and all the images you see on the other side are of people that are hostile and hateful. So I think that, the algorithms and the feeds are also playing a role there too.
So you're at UCLA, is that right?
I just started a new faculty position in Buffalo, New York.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which I always say it's on the far side of New York from the city, about 6 hours, 2 hours from Toronto, right near the border with Canada. I mean, you probably know that, but a lot of people in Europe that might be listening can't really.
I've never been to Buffalo, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and is the way in which you're delivering teaching there? Presumably, it's been sort of moved all online, or are you doing some in-person teaching and a mix of things?
I chose to be in person after emailing all my students about what they would prefer. I would say that 80% of my colleagues are fully online.
Right.
And the students have been so great and so conscientious, and the campus is pretty much like a ghost town. It's just a very different experience and feeling being there. They've really decreased the presence of people by a huge amount.
So people are taking it very, very seriously, I imagine. And
yeah, they are here. Yeah, I mean, New York State in general has been, and everybody knows that if we go above 100 cases in a 2-week period, the campus will have to shut down per the governor's order. So everybody's monitoring that, and there's 33,000 students, I believe. So it doesn't take much to ruin it for everybody.
So have you just started then? Is this a completely new position for you?
Yeah, I'm about a month into it.
Well, congrats. Yeah, I hope you're enjoying it despite everything.
I think people take their education more seriously because they know it's just such a different context. I think people
Right.
I feel like are valuing the experience a lot more than in the past. I think we took it for granted that we could sit in a room and exchange ideas.
Yeah. And what are you doing anything, as it were, within your university that's sort of very interdisciplinary, or is it just very early days and you're sort of teaching and researching and keeping it on the sort of straight and narrow?
Well, we're founding a new department, so that's exciting.
Okay.
Yeah, it's brand new. It's the Department of Environment and Sustainability. And so I was one of the first cohort of hires around that. And
so that presumably is bringing in people from different disciplines. Is that right? Or?
Yeah, we've got, historians and sociologists and ecologists and chemists and all of that. It's pretty great.
It sounds really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think our brief is to be thinking very, very long term. And I think we're supposed to take some degree of inspiration from the composition, Jem Finer's very, very long piece, the Longplayer. I don't know if you've listened to it at all online.
Not much, no.
I actually went to the sort of, there's a place in London, Trinity Buoy, which is a lighthouse, or a former lighthouse. And they have all these bronze bowls, which is how the noise gets produced, or is supposed to be produced. At the moment, it's all electronic. And it's quite striking. They're very beautiful objects, these large sort of bronze bowls. And you can sponsor one, and people have got a word on it that they've chosen. And the music is very it's sort of very eerie in a way. It's these sort of long, almost sort of whale-like noises that you get sometimes from the sort of the deeper bowls, and this sort of very pure sounds that come out of them. And I was sort of trying to reflect on this and trying to be sort of thinking long term about it. And I suppose what struck me is that it's a very clever piece of music, but in a way it sort of sounds the same at any point that you come into it, even though it's different. It's very much the same sound world. So in a way it's able to be very long term because it's done something in a very defined and almost quite conservative sort of way.
Every field probably has a contribution to cultivating that sensibility. Yeah, it's not easy. I've been thinking about this, like, how do you teach that? You know, I mean, you need to teach about a sense of scale, both spatial and temporal, I think, kind of go at the same time. And, you know, we have models that can show us long-term projections, but how do you make that felt and real and kind of a habit that you're thinking about? It's just so different. Maybe religion plays a role. I'm not sure.
Mm. What about things like architecture? You know, the structures that have survived, pyramids or Colosseum or cathedrals, they seem sort of built in this very solid sort of way. Are we thinking enough about simplicity and solidity in the way in which we position ourselves? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and it's hard because of the state we're in. The mandate is to be adaptive and resilient and, you know, have something that is mutable and flexible given the climate chaos and so forth that is impending, right? But how do you have that sensibility and the long-term view? I suspect that there are definitely other cultures, past and present, that have done this much better than ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, the music it's really interesting. It's very eerie. You couldn't listen to it all. I mean, obviously, but I think it is a beautiful set of sounds though that get produced. I'd quite like to sort of hear, as it were, a live performance, or at least to hear what the singing bowls really sound like when they're together, because I think the way it's produced at the moment is all electronic and maybe doesn't completely take into account the sort of resonant effect that one bowl might have on another, depending on where it's sort of positioned.
I mean, have there been any other experiences that have given you that sense of a long-term perspective?
Well, music is definitely one of them. I mean, I at some points in the order I was going to be talking to Brian Eno, and I unfortunately know nothing about popular music, but sort of you know, Renaissance music I like very much and sing quite a bit, which I suppose is why I'm rabbiting on a lot about this sound installation, the Longplayer. So my and actually also thinking about the pandemic has been quite interesting in these sort of musical terms. When you listen to, let's say, a piece of music that was composed 500 years ago, let's say, and when you sing it, it's still absolutely as fresh and as totally to the point, and speaks to you emotionally, actually, as it must have done, you know, sort of 500 years ago. There's a kind of sense of long-termness about that, which is very, very impressive. And okay, there's partly it's a selection artifact, in the sense that if someone had composed a piece of music 500 years ago that was rubbish, it probably wouldn't have survived, or if it did, no one bothers to perform it. But, you know, something which has really stood the test of time like that, I think there's a lot to be learned from it. And it's well, I mean, it's my sort of you know, it's a particular sort of hobby and interest of mine is this Renaissance you know, music and so on. So there's that. I don't know if that's what the sort of thing you were thinking of.
Oh, I don't know. I was just curious, you know, what kind of sparks that sensibility in people. I think that for me, there's definitely places where with particular geologies, you know, in particular in the desert and in the US West, that give you that sense of the long term, but it's quite different than something that's human made. And I guess I'm thinking about around Buffalo, where I live now, there's these gigantic abandoned industrial structures from, you know, 100, 200 maybe even years ago that just live there. And they've shaped how things are now. And I guess I'm thinking often about, a few generations in the future, how what we're doing is shaping what they'll be able to do.
And is it particularly places where you knew whilst growing up that have these sort of significances for you, or is it just really the visual aesthetic of it?
I think that's a good question, because I think that, when you're a child, you pay a different type of attention to your surroundings, and I think it shapes you more, or you develop more of a relationship because you're still living in this kind of imaginary world where things take on significance. And I guess places I've met later in life have a different feeling.
You're not native to Buffalo then? You've moved there?
Or I've moved a lot of places. I was actually grew up in a town that was designed in the 1960s. So living kind of in somebody else's vision, I guess.
Did that work for you? Was that a good vision? Or?
It was a great place to grow up because they had designed it with certain values of, instead of churches, there were interfaith centers in the center of neighborhoods that every community could use. The housing was all kind of mixed income all together, so you didn't have people off in gated enclaves with their own social class. So there were some great things about that, and I guess it's been with me my whole life. Like, what does it mean to design an environment for somebody else, or a climate for somebody else, as my work is exploring lately.
And you never felt, as it were, trapped in a particular vision? There was enough leeway that people could have their own space and manipulate their own space to suit them in a sort of in a way in that environment? Or
yeah, there were times when it felt over designed, but there was the thing is they planned in a lot of green space, so you had that as your own imaginary land.
Yeah. But a nice place to grow up then.
For a while. But then when you're a teenager, it all becomes different. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've only got about a minute and a half. And I suppose we should think about what we didn't say that we probably ought to have done, or ask a question that we have been wanting to but haven't yet done. Or
well, I mean, is there anything regards to COVID that you haven't talked about that you want people out there in the world to know?
Oh, actually, yeah. So that's a very good question. Yes, please do your bit. I mean, it's incumbent on absolutely every one of us to do everything that we can to stop this thing from spreading. And we all have to be incredibly responsible about the way in which we exercise our freedoms. We really have to not spread this from one to another. The other thing I would say also, if you can and you would like to contribute to COVID research, that's also excellent. Not just in terms of money or whatever, but I really mean in terms of being a participant in research, whether that's vaccine trials or if you've had COVID, then there's all sorts of research programs that would love to hear from you. And if you're able to donate, blood or whatever to those research programs, that will really help. So yeah, thank you. That's as it were, a broadcast message. Number one, be super responsible. Number two, please help with the research and so on. Yes.